Hi everybody, it's Angelia. Welcome back to Read and Reread. Today I have my August TBR pile. It's kind of a different way that I assembled the pile this month because we have packed up to move, and as I was packing, I set aside books that I feel like might suit the many different moods that I might have during this month. So instead of having, usually I have like a few new ones, there's a couple of rereads, there might be a theme that I want to hit, or some new books come in, and this time it's more like I got to just set some aside, and that's what I have to choose from. So I try to hit several different categories that often come up in my cycle of reading moods, and this is what I have. Also, as you can see, the packing and stuff is still going on. That cat in the background is Moo, my daughter's cat, because she is here too. She's in between apartments, student apartments. There's like everyone had to move out, and then she's going to another complex, and the move in is not for a couple of weeks, and so Moo's here. She's here too, but she's hiding in another room. Anyway, so, and I'm allergic to cats, so if I snuffle or snort at some point in this video, that's what it is. Alright, so first of all, the first category is mystery. So currently I am reading Marion Lane and the Midnight Murder by T.A. Willberg, a new series. There's 2 books in this series so far. My friend Stacy recommended this, and she thought I would like it because it reminded her of the Bletchley Circle, which is a TV show that had 2 or 3 seasons, a British show about these women who were code breakers in World War II, but about 10 years later, when they get back together to solve some mysteries with their various skills. And the Bletchley, that it was a real thing. The story of the crime solvers was fictionalized, but the code breakers were real. And that is mentioned in this book as well. But the person who founds this group called the Inquirers also worked in World War II for that. So what we got here is there is a kind of a secret underground detective agency. People don't know if it's real or not, but there's these places where you can put in a question or a problem that you want them to investigate, and it is real. And so they see them all, and they may or may not pursue those investigations. And people who work there, it's top secret. The people in their lives do not know that that's what they really do. They think they all work at this kind of rundown used bookstore. But down underground, there's underground tunnels and under London, and that's where the investigators really work. And I feel like this is the latest in a series of books over time where it has been imagined that London has a secret underworld or another aspect that you can't see. I feel like I've read several books like this. And also there's a lot of little gadgets like spy devices, and some of them are kind of in the fantasy realm or kind of steampunky. So it's pretty fun so far. It's definitely on the lighter side, even though it opens with a murder. But I am enjoying it, and I'll let you know how it goes as I read. Also for mystery, I pulled the second book in the Matthew Venn series by Ann Cleeves called The Heron's Cry. I talked about the first book last month, and I had bought this one at a thrift store and found out it was book 2, so I bought book 1. Liked it pretty well. It wasn't like the greatest book, but it was good enough that I want to read book 2 and decide how I feel about this mystery series about Matthew Venn, who is a detective in a small coastal British town. And when I start reading it, I'll talk more about it. There's a lot in this lineup, so I'm only going to really briefly describe each one. Really briefly. I think I tongue-tied there for a second. All right, this one would be a reread. I pulled Dan Chaon's Ill Will. We got a copy of it recently. My husband and I both read it. We're big fans, and we both want to read it again. So he found a used copy, and it's in really good condition, but it's a library pull, and I'm thinking, what library lost their mind and maybe they had an extra copy? I don't know, but this is an excellent book that I remember a lot of things about but not everything. It was from the Dallas Wasco County Library in Dallas, Oregon. So if anybody's from there, their library no longer has this book. But it's super weird. It's really good, and I will, of course, again, describe it more if I decide to choose to read it this month. Here's one that I talked about recently when I touched upon books in my shelves I've never read. It's Armadale. It's a classic and a mystery, and it has to do with two men that have the same name, but one of them is in line to inherit a fortune, and the other one decides to use an alias and sidle into the other man's life and find out more about him. So that sounds intriguing to me, and I like Wilkie Collins. All right, so that sort of bridges between mysteries and classics, and I pulled a few more classics from my shelves as well. I have this cute little guy, Three Men in a Boat, and I can't remember, somebody recommended this. It might have been in the Classics Facebook group that I'm in, and it is a little thin book. It says, three impressionable young clerks set out on a boating trip down the River Thames in the company of a fox terrier called Montmorency. Never could they have predicted the mishaps, antics, and hilarious escapades that lay ahead. As they embark on their journey, they must contend with treacherous tow lines, an unruly dog determined to cause trouble at every opportunity, and the challenge of trying to get into a tin of pineapple chunks without a can opener. So it was published in 1889. It's supposed to be comedic, obviously, and I thought you always need a book like this somewhere in your vicinity in case, I don't know, things get rough and you just need something skinny, something funny, something not too challenging. So I thought that might fit the bill sometime in this moving month. Also, in case I go the total opposite and I want something long and engaging and detailed, I pulled excuse me, cat allergy, Tale of Two Cities, Charles Dickens, out of my set. I was packing my big box set, and I thought I should leave out at least one of these because I just got the set for Mother's Day, and I read Great Expectations, but I haven't read any of the other ones. So I have never read Tale of Two Cities. All I know of it is that opening paragraph, which is pretty iconic, but I thought maybe I feel like reading this. I just don't know. So here it is. We'll see. As you can see, I had no clue what kind of mood I was in when I pulled these. Then I set aside Rebecca that I just got. This was my last haul, and I've always wanted this book, and I never had it, have never read it. It always sounded kind of good, atmospheric, creepy, so I have that possibility. All right, let's see. The next couple of books are, I think they're historical fiction. Here's an Ann Patchett book that I've never read. I've read a lot of her books. I never read, I think it's her first book, The Patron Saint of Liars. Has to do with people in a home for unwed mothers. I think it's around the early 1900s, as it says something about 1906 in the first page. I really know absolutely nothing about it except that I like the author. So we're going to maybe give that a try. Then we have the anatomy lesson, which I talked about in my last haul video, which is the one about the Rembrandt and how the background of his painting, the anatomy lesson of Dr. Nicholas Tulp, about the different people that were there at the dissection, including Rembrandt, and also getting into the backstory of the man they were dissecting and how he had had a life of his own, and there's more to him than just being the body in the painting. Then, this is Never the Bridesmaid, Always the Bride of my book pile for the past several months, The Sweetness of Water by Nathan Harris, a book about the events at the end of the Civil War when there are two parallel stories. One is about a forbidden romance between two Confederate soldiers, and the other one is about two brothers who want to save up money to be reunited with their mother who had been sold away before slavery ended, and about the events in a small town in the South regarding these people and the choices of a couple that I guess intersects with them and the people that hire the brothers. So I'm always pulling this. It looks so good. I've heard it's wonderful, and somehow it keeps missing my mood, but maybe this time. All right, then we have a couple of science fiction fantasy, because I get that mood once in a while. This is The Possessors by John Christopher, which I picked up a while back and have not yet read. It's supposed to be sort of a kind of an invasion of the body snatchers type situation, but it's one of his adult works. I've mentioned more than once that his young adult trilogy about the tripods, starts with the White Mountains, is one of my favorites. So then this was one of those times where you're just so excited to get your hands on something, and you're just like every day checking the tracking. Is it here? And then it gets here. And I've had it for like 5 months and I still haven't read it. So maybe now. And then also Siren Queen, which blends fantasy, historical elements, and I don't know what else in pre-code Hollywood, but I like the author Nghi. Okay, then a couple more odds and ends. If I'm moving weird, I slept totally weird last night, and I only go one direction, so I can look over here. When I go over here, I've got to do my whole body. I always like to have a set of short stories around, so I set aside You Think It, I'll Say It by Curtis Sittenfeld. Now, here's the story on this. Only book I have read by hers is, I think it was Prep, and I did not love it. I thought it was well written, but I didn't really like the characters. I didn't really like what happened in the story. But I was listening to a podcast, and I only listen to podcasts when we're on long car trips, but the podcast was a conversation between Rumaan Alam, who wrote Leave the World Behind, and Dan Chaon, who I talk about all the time. And Rumaan had been a student of Dan's at one time, and now he's also a very successful author, and he teaches. And so he was teaching a writing class in New York, and that this was on the syllabus. He had some short story collections, and he talked about when he was at a time in his life when he could not afford to go to graduate school, but he wanted to study writing more. So he set himself a task of going from A to Z and reading short story collections. And that now he still is incorporating that a lot into his writing courses. So he highly praised this collection. And so based on the strength of that recommendation, I picked it up at a secondhand bookstore. Then I pulled just a couple of children's books that are nostalgic to me in case I feel like that. And I'll tell you why I pulled them. The first one is B is for Betsy. And I showed this book back in, I think, maybe my newbie video or something. But this was my very first chapter book, and it's about a little girl who's beginning first grade. And I read it when I was in first grade. And this is my copy that I picked out at the bookstore that I've had all this time. And every now and then I read it again. And the reason why I pulled it this time is because school is getting ready to start. And this is the first time in my whole life, starting from preschool to today, that I have not been going back to school as either a student or a teacher or both. I am now retired, and this is my very first back to school. I'm still a parent of somebody going back to school because I have a college student, but I am no longer an educator or a student, and I might want to read B is for Betsy. And then last but definitely not least, the randomest run of all is Roller Skates by Ruth Sawyer, which won a Newbery Award back in, oh my gosh, it's probably like the 1930s or something. 1936 is the original copyright. This was a book that was one of my favorites when I was a kid that I checked out of the library like millions of times. And I have not read it in adulthood at all, but I picked up a secondhand copy from a used bookstore or library book sale. But the reason why I pulled it was because a few nights ago, I had a dream that I was packing the books like I really have been doing, and that I came to this one, but it wasn't this copy. It was like the copy that I saw when I was a kid. And I was like, oh, roller skates. And so when I woke up, I was like, it's a sign. I need to set aside roller skates and see if I want to read it now. Okay, that's it. It's a big old pile. I went through it really fast. The ones that I actually do read, you will see again in Friday Reads or the end of the month wrap-up. But that's kind of, that's the state of affairs right now. So it might be a little different than everybody else's reading pile, but that's how it goes. I hope that you have a wonderful month of reading planned, and I'll be hearing about that or watching the videos. And I'm going to peace out now, so have a great day. I'll see you soon. Bye.